I'm an SEO consultant and a writer. I've been working in this field for 16 years, and 6 of those have been working independently as a consultant. I typically work with business to business brands throughout the United States, Canada, and the UK, although I do at times work with educational institutions as well. Through my work, I have found that there really isn't a huge difference between SEO and what we know now as AI SEO, and that's something that Google and other search engines have confirmed, which we're going to talk about today so that you hopefully get a better understanding of exactly where we stand right now in the world of search and what you need to do to be found by your clients online. Now, if you don't know me, I know it can be hard to figure out who you should believe and who you should not. So, as some bona fides, my content that I have written for my clients and with the SEO strategies that I've put in place for them typically ranks well for years on end. I've had client content that ranked highly in search before the AI overview rolled out, and years later, it is still ranking #1 and still in the top of the AI overview. My client's content can get up into the AI overview within about 30 minutes after publication, so very rapid results. Can also be, I've also seen it appear in AI search tools like ChatGPT and Claude within a couple hours after publication as well. So what I'm telling you here today has been put into practice and used. I'm not making it up on the spot. Now, why are we all here? The problem is that a lot of us don't know what SEO means anymore, and there's all kinds of acronyms floating around. There's SEO, GEO, AEO, AIO. What is all of that? And when you try to research it, a lot of times the best practices, including information you might be getting from AI tools, feels like a puzzle. There's conflicting information, people are using all these different acronyms, people are saying one thing, others are saying something else, and the end result is that if you're like a lot of people I know, you're left feeling unsure where to start. And every attempt you make at figuring out where to start winds up leaving you feeling like you've got a chore list. And that's not what anyone wants or needs. So by the end of our time today, you're going to have a better understanding of what SEO, GEO, AEO, and all this other word salad, what that really is and what it isn't. You're going to know exactly what does and doesn't work in 2026. You're going to feel more confident in your starting point and plan, and you're going to learn how to track key SEO data without feeling a ton of overwhelm. Now, today's session is a no sales pitch call. It is designed to make SEO less stressful, and I'm not going to be selling you on any particular service or product. That said, as you move through what we're talking about today, if you find that you would like additional support or access to DIY tools that I've created, you can find them at the websites below, and I will be sending out this information afterwards, so if you want to revisit that in the future, you'll have the links readily available. So before we get into how AI search works, we want to talk about how generative AI itself works, because knowing how the tool works helps us understand what does and doesn't work for search. So at a very top level, an AI company will create a model, a computer program, and it's trained on massive troves of online data, huge data sets, bigger than anything you could possibly store on your own computer. And the engineers that create these data sets train it through programming to look for certain patterns and log these patterns and seek out matches in new data sets like the internet at large. So when a customer or a user types a prompt into an AI chat tool, whether that's Google's AI mode or something like ChatGPT, the AI program is using its training data to look for similar patterns in the chat exchange and make a prediction based on statistics and math as to what the most likely response should be. What is the human user most likely to expect? And this cycle of inputting a question and getting an output back from the AI continues throughout the duration of the chat. And as the chat continues, as new questions are posed, it influences the outputs that come out. So if I have a ChatGPT workspace and you have a ChatGPT workspace and we're both running searches, we might be getting slightly different answers based on the language that we're using and our history of chats with the AI. So this adds a layer of complexity to figuring out what and how people are searching using AI tools, but it doesn't make it impossible. Now, when you run a search on Google, we understand how it works. You type in a search, you get a list of links back. It's very standard. We've been doing this for decades. When you run a search with an AI tool, it can feel a little different. It can feel a little more magic because you type in a question and you get a long, naturally worded answer back. But what isn't always clear is that these tools are actually just running web searches in the background. So the screen here is a screenshot from a conversation that I had with Claude for the purposes of getting an example for you. And we can see that when I ask Claude a question, it is actually just running multiple queries in the background. It is going to Google essentially and running searches on my behalf. Now that does allow me to run a lot more searches at once than it would if I was typing them in myself, but the actual function that's happening isn't that different than it used to be. There's no real magic going on here. It's just another intermediary step in the process of Googling something. And as we see in this example, when I, about 3 days ago, asked Claude to run this search, it actually ran a search and added last year to it. I did not tell it to do that, and we are well into 2026. So that shows that some of the information I was getting back from this search was slightly outdated. So you are putting an intermediary in the search process, and you don't have as much control over what searches it's running. And again, we're not talking about how to search today, but knowing that this is how it works will help you better understand how these tools are thinking about what you're writing and putting on your website. But let's settle it once and for all before we continue. What are we going to call this? So there's SEO, which of course traditionally refers to the process of getting your site to appear in normal search results. And then there's generative engine optimization, which is often used as the newer term for discussing getting your website into AI-powered search results, but some people also call it answer engine optimization, or AEO. And a lot of folks I've talked to recently are confused about what these different acronyms mean and are they the same thing or not. So when it comes down to it, generative engine optimization, or GEO, is exactly the same as answer engine optimization. It's just two different names for the exact same thing. And in truth, these things aren't that different from SEO as a whole. So for the purposes of our conversation today, we're going to call AI search SEO GEO. We're going to use that term for it. Now, when you are putting content on a website and search engines and AI tools are figuring out what pages you have and which pages they should show in search results, they're looking for certain bits of information on each page. And as you can see here, they're actually looking for the same stuff. So even though the person searching is accessing the search tool in a different way, traditional Google search versus chatting with an AI, the end result is that the underlying technology behind AI search tools and regular search tools is almost exactly the same. It is looking for content that answers a specific question. It's looking for content that expands on the user's initial question. So not just answering one very specific thing, but providing additional context and additional color that will help the searcher better understand what they're asking about. Both of these types of tools are showing a preference for information that includes real experience-backed takes by the author or the company that's writing it. So rather than just saying, oh, this tool is best, it prefers when the content says, this tool is best because of this experience I had with it. Here's why I'm recommending it. The search engine tools like images, videos, tables, and lists because they're easy to serve up and show, and the user often finds them easy to read and very helpful. And, when all is said and done, if you're providing good value through your content and meeting the points that we have here, you're going to find that you're able to appear in any kind of search result, no matter how the end user, the person you're trying to reach, is actually accessing that information. So then that might beg the question, why aren't you showing up? If you have found that you aren't showing up in AI search results, but you used to show up in quote unquote traditional Google search results, there can be a whole host of reasons why, some of which are very technical and get into how your website is actually structured. And we can't touch on all of those today in the time that we have available, but there are a couple really big things that I find are often the issue for people who had success previously but are having trouble and struggling to get their website to show up in AI chat results or in the AI overview. One part of it is that your website might have a lot of older pages on it. If you used to publish a lot of content, but you haven't updated it in a long time, maybe life got in the way or you started a second business, that can be part of the issue because a search engine tool that's powered by AI is prioritizing recency. For the most part, we did see earlier from the example with Claude, it ran a search for 2025. That's more of the AI issue than a search issue. But ultimately, recency and new pages is going to help you appear in more AI search tools. Also, if your website is mostly landing pages or sales funnels, it is less likely to appear in search results. Because think about it. When was the last time you had a chat with ChatGPT or Claude, and instead of giving you an informational answer, it was like, oh, hey, you should go check out Susan's sales pitch over here. That doesn't really happen. These tools are prioritizing showing the user informational how-to content, answering questions with clear examples and references. They're not passing along a sales pitch. So while you absolutely can still have calls to action on your web pages, and there are absolutely still great use cases and a need for things like sales funnels, they can't be the only thing on your site. It is extremely important to have a blog or a resource type section on your website in order to increase your chances of appearing in AI generated search results. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go through the presentation today. Also, having web pages that are just poor structure can be an issue too. So you need to make sure you're using the right headers, making it clear that you're answering specific questions in your content, and also making sure that AI search tools can actually access your website. Some people have inadvertently blocked AI search tools from accessing their website in the past, and that means that when those tools try to find resources to show people, they actually can't access your website and they're not able to show you as an option. So just to reiterate, because this is really important, you absolutely must allow AI tools web crawlers, which are the programs that they send out on the internet to figure out what websites exist and what pages they have. You must allow them to access your website if you want to appear in their search results. Now, there are some reasons why some sites have decided to block AI search tools. Some folks, they really don't want their website content to be used to train future versions of the AI, and I get that. I hate AI more than a lot of people I know, so I completely understand it. But unfortunately, you can't have both. If you do want to be found in AI search results, you have to allow them onto your page. Now, that gets to be a very technical conversation, so let's refocus on what's happening with your pages and what you can do to get them to show up. Assuming that the AI tools are allowed to come to your website, what needs to happen next? We're going to start by debunking some really common GEO myths that I hear all of the time. 4 big ones that some of you may have been told, because I know lots of people ask me about this, is 1, people say you should be using AI to write because the idea is that AI search engines like AI content. Another common misconception is that you need to write yourself, but write like AI, mimic its language patterns. Do use certain punctuation, don't use certain punctuation. Really try to make yourself sound like a generative chatbot. The third thing is to use something called FAQ schema. Schema is a code element that goes on websites, and there's a lot of people who say you need to be using this. in order to appear in search results through AI tools, and you have to have an FAQ section on every page. You don't, and we're going to get into why. But this is a common thing that's talked about. In fact, this right here is probably the most common piece of advice I've heard, and we're going to talk about why it isn't necessary. And lastly, another common myth I hear is that you need to talk to the AI about you. There are people who sell whole courses for real money on this concept that you need to sit down and have a chat with the AI tool to teach it about you. And that's actually not going to do much besides cause frustration and waste some of your time. So let's talk some more about myth number one, the idea that AI search loves AI content. So if you are using AI to generate web pages, when I say content, I'm referring to blog posts, articles, case studies, landing pages, anything that's going to go on your website. If you're using AI and you are generating an ultra high volume of content, we're talking maybe you're publishing like 20 pages a day, you can very briefly show up in a lot of search results simply because of the sheer volume of what you're putting out there. But doing so can actually get you flagged as a spam risk. Search engines often see that level of publication and they flag it as not humanly possible. And in this case, it's not because it requires a generative AI bot. So even though you may appear briefly because of just the sheer number of pages you're putting on the web, those pages aren't going to persist long term in search results, and you will find that your efforts will lead nowhere over time. Also, generative AI tools can't create any net new ideas. Now, you might be thinking, Emily, well, I had a conversation with Claude yesterday and it told me things I didn't know. And that is partially because it was a net new idea to you. You hadn't thought of it before. Totally valid. But that doesn't mean it was a new and novel idea in the scope of what everyone knows and what everyone has put online. So our brains have the ability to create connections out of very disparate things and put them together into a new insight. The tools, however, that you might be using to create content for your website can only remix what has already been said before. I've been running tests on these tools for years, actually since before ChatGPT launched. I have seen them directly plagiarize competitors. They have lifted sections of content, fabricated quotes. Like, it gets very messy, and usually it's just a regurgitation of something that's existed before. And if you're saying the same thing that people have said over and over again, it's not going to perform as well in search results because you're not adding a lot of the new personal insights and value to the conversation. And Google itself actually very recently, just a couple weeks ago, came out and said that content easily created by a generative AI tool will not be preferable and prioritized for inclusion in its AI search results. Because, ironically, the AI tools can only continue to evolve and exist and get better if humans are feeding new information into the internet. And if you have any questions about why or how that works, you can ping me afterward and we can talk about it. It's kind of a complex discussion, but basically, humanity and human ideas are going to be prioritized in search, and the big behemoth, Google, has said that itself. Also, in that vein, SEMrush, which many of you may know is a large SEO company, they recently did a study and they found that the top search result for any keyword question is 8 times more likely to be human written than it is to be AI written. So even if you can't produce as many new web pages yourself as you can when you use AI, you're going to be spending time on stuff that's more likely to actually rank and stay ranking long term. So while your output may be slower than if you were using generative AI, your return on your time investment is going to be significantly better long term. As an example, here is a piece of content written by a human. That was me. It was first published in 2024. And as you can see here, to date, it still remains at the top of search for multiple keywords, and it also appears in AI overviews. And I'm not saying this just to toot my own horn, but it's to show you that even a shift to AI search results, because AI search functionality in tools like ChatGPT and Claude and the Google AI Overview all rolled out during this time that the content was online, it suddenly didn't get deprioritized because it was written by a person. Because the content still provided value, answers, explanatory information, it was picked up by those AI search tools and continued to be shown and actually gained traction in new queries and new keywords over time. As a comparison, here is some metrics for a piece of content on the same website as my last example. And it was content that was targeting a search that actually had more searches done per month than the piece that I had written. And as we can see here, it has not done well over time because while I don't know 100% for sure that this piece that I'm showing you here was written by AI because I wasn't involved in its production, it shows a lot of markers of AI content. There are specific language patterns and structures that AI typically produces, and this article has all of those, and we can see here that it has not done well long term. It had that initial like 2.5 month peak after publication, and then it dropped down. So that's just another illustration of the fact that yes, you may be able to get a high ranking momentarily for a large volume of AI generated content, but it's not going to give you that ROI over time, which is pretty important for most small business owners. Also, AI might not be saving you as much time as you expect. I ran a study myself at the end of 2025, early 2026, and I found that the majority of people who are using AI to create content are actually still spending at least one, often two full business days getting something usable out of it. So that's a lot of time to put in to then be publishing something that isn't going to last in search results for a long time. Now, the second myth is that you need to write pages on your website yourself that make yourself sound like AI. That's really not going to do anything for you besides just be an exercise in frustration. So AI tools are really good at identifying language patterns, and they've been trained on natural human language and cadence and the way we pair words together. So it doesn't matter if you write in really short paragraphs and lots of bullet points and make it look like an AI. The AI is not actually looking at how web pages are structured in terms of paragraph length or sentence length. It's looking for specific words and terms and phrase strings. So don't worry about trying to mimic an AI. It's not going to help you in any regard, and it's just going to be a real pain in the butt, most likely. Because here's how AI search actually works. Someone comes in and does a search. So I go online and I type in to ChatGPT what I want to know. Every question that someone asks has what's called a search intent assigned with it, and you can figure out a search intent based on the words people are using and how they're structuring their question. So, if I'm asking, how do I do blank, that's an informational search intent. I want to get instructions. If I'm asking, how much does something cost, then I'm probably more interested in making a commercial purchase. So these AI tools, like people, can figure out what does the person probably want from this search based on the words they're using. And then it does something called query fan out, which is when it takes the initial term that you type into the chat and it crunches its numbers and all of its database training, all the information that exists in its computer memory, and it looks for related topics, related questions other people have asked online, and puts together a comprehensive idea of like, okay, here's the main question, and they're probably also going to want to know about these 6 supporting things. Then the tools look into the database of information that they've collected, web pages that they've crawled and parsed and figured out what is this website about, and determine what content, what pages best answer the original question, and what pages provide that additional color, the information about related topics. And this all happens in a split second. It's actually almost exactly how traditional Google search works too. It's now just happening through a chat interface. So it doesn't matter what your content looks like, it's actually looking for things like this behind the scenes, like topics and terms. This is just a visual example of what query fan out looks like. It shows you how you can start with one topic or one question, and these computer systems will associate other questions that are related to it, build out a bigger picture of what someone might want to know as they begin their research. The third myth is that you need to use FAQs everywhere. So you don't, first off. Do not put an FAQ on every page of your website. It's just another thing you have to do, and it's not going to make a difference. If someone tells you that you need to use FAQ schema, the schema is an element of your page code, and schema can be really useful for communicating specific information to search engines and AI search crawlers. It can be used in different ways to communicate who the author of a page is, what hours during the day a business is open, things like that. And for a long time, there was a type of schema, a piece of code that you could add that said, hey, this section of my page is a list of frequently asked questions. That was originally developed to help people publishing what's known as YAML information, which stands for Your Money or Your Life, YMYL. It was originally developed so that if you were publishing content about like health, money, family, parenting, retirement, medicine, you could put FAQs on your pages, use the FAQ schema, and have your information appear in different parts of search results pages. It was never meant to be used on like sales content, business landing pages, etc. And people started doing that when AI tools rolled out because they thought that it would help them appear in more AI search results. And it got overused to the point that search engines, Google, AI tools, etc., no longer recognize FAQ schema. It does nothing. So you don't need to add it to your page. What you do want to do is just add questions and answers into your content as naturally as possible. Now, there are still times to use FAQ sections. I, on my website, have them on my products and services page because they answer some specific questions that I get asked about my offerings. But you don't need to put them on every blog post, every white paper, every case study that you might write. So if you're writing something like a blog post, don't worry about putting in an FAQ section. Just look for ways to weave questions into the page as like a subheading or a little call out box where you explain what questions you're asked normally and give your answer. This is a screenshot from a page on my site. It is a blog post I did about this very topic. It is currently one of the highest drivers to my website, so this is very top of mind for a lot of people. And you can use questions in your content exactly as displayed here. I made the subhead appear one of my questions. And this one here, it's not worded as a question, but people do search for how should you not use FAQs? When should you not use FAQs? So I provide an answer to that question right here. So just work it in, like putting a question as a subheading is one of the best things that you can do because you're still making it very clear that you're providing an answer to a specific question, which is useful for attracting AI search tools, but you don't have to go through any hoops with formatting or adding special code or anything like that. You can just put it in as if you were just talking to someone or writing your narrative as you normally would. Just pop a question in there somewhere. The fourth myth is to tell the AI about your site. Now, if you sit down and you have a chat with Google's AI mode or Perplexity or whatever tool you like to use and tell it about your website, it might indeed start referencing you more when you run test searches in your account. And that is because the tool is trained on how you've been conversing with it. But even if you tell it a lot about your business, while it might help tailor the outputs you're getting from the chat tool, it doesn't have widespread impact on how often you are surfaced and shown and cited by other AI tools for other people's AI search results. So as an example, Meta, the company that owns Facebook, has an AI chat tool, and they trained it using book content. They downloaded basically every book that's ever been published by humans. They got it off of a pirating website, and they downloaded all of these books, and they put them into their AI model to train it about how people use language. So if you wanted to get a copy of every one of those books for yourself and read them so that you read all of the same content that this LLM has in its memory, you would need 5,125 individual Kindle Paperwhites in order to hold all of the books. Like, you would need over 5,000 e-readers to contain this library of information. So when you feed in a few pages of information about your site, you are up against this massive trove of data. It is barely making a dent outside of your personal conversations with it. So again, it's just one of those things that it doesn't have a good return on your investment. It's not going to do much, and you don't need to worry about it. The best thing you can do is replace these myths with different approaches. So first off, instead of using AI to write, focus on writing yourself. If you want to use AI or you find that it really helps you, use it before you write. A lot of people will put their notes and ideas into a tool like Claude and let Claude spit out the actual web page, text, or blog post. Flip that around. If you're going to use AI, use it to outline or do some initial research, but then write the final published piece of content yourself, or pay another human to do it if you don't want to write. But the point is that, remember, if Google said if something can be produced by a generative AI tool, it's not likely to rank in search. And while that came from Google, that does apply broadly speaking, since as we saw, tools like Claude and ChatGPT and Perplexity are really just running web searches on your behalf. Instead of writing like AI, just focus on writing naturally in whatever tone of voice you like to use, and just think newspaper, not novel. So you want to keep your paragraphs on the smaller side, but you don't need to worry about mimicking AI in any specific way. You don't have to worry about using the FAQ schema. Instead, just work questions naturally into your content as subheads. I like to make them H2s or H3s on my site. Just break down topics as I go. And you don't need to tell the AI about you either. Instead, just focus on coming up with the most regular publication schedule that you can for your website, because whether it's every week or every month, if you are consistently putting content online that you or a member of your team has really thought about and tried to make as original as possible, that is going to help you get into search results far more than spending time telling the AI about you. So if nothing else today, I hope you take away these following 3 things. So 1, when you're putting a new web page on your site, think about what content you're creating and what someone wants to get out of it. If you have a topic that you're trying to target and you want to appear in AI search results, think about what the person behind the search wants to get out of it. Are they looking for information? Are they trying to find a login page on your website? Do they want to, buy something from you? So don't strictly focus on hard sells on your website. Like, for instance, if I'm someone who's searching for how to do something, I want to put out informational content, but I don't want to use just like sales funnels and landing pages. Similarly, if people are searching for how to buy a product that I'm selling, I'm going to want to create product focused content for that keyword that pushes them towards making a purchase. I'm not going to want to just post an interview transcript without any links to my product and call it a day. You also want to focus on something called EEAT. This is an acronym that stands for expertise, experience, authority, and trust. Now, you don't need to worry about communicating this in every single piece of content or every single web page you put online. This is something that your website should do broadly as a whole. So when you take a step back and you look at your whole website, does your website communicate why you are the expert or why your company is the leader in a field? Is there anything on your site that talks about how you got there? Can you back up that expertise with bona fides related to experience, awards, accolades, degrees, customers you've worked with? Is it clear from looking at your site why you're reliable? And can people figure out who trusts you? This is where social proof, things like case studies, reviews, etc., come into play. Why are you trusted? So this is something that is done with your website as a whole. When you're writing individual pieces of content, it can be very helpful to drop a line here and there, especially if it's in a blog post about, oh, with my experience doing XYZ, I found that, or I saw that this thing I'm talking about really worked when I did my project with name of a client. But as a whole, your website is what needs to communicate EEAT. Third, be findable online. Figure out if AI search bots can find you. Check to see if your website works on your phone. Even if a lot of your customers tend to access your site on their computers, the phone version of a website is actually what is most important for making sure you can appear in search results. So if your website looks beautiful on a full computer screen, but doesn't work correctly on a phone, you're going to be deprioritized from appearing in SEO and GEO results. When you put a new web page on your site, does it have links to other pages? Make sure that you're not just focused on getting links from other websites, but that you're actually, when you put a new page on, make sure that there's another spot on your site that links to it, and vice versa. That can help AI search bots find new content on your site faster and speed up the rate at which it's appearing in AI chat results. And finally, do you have a blog? You don't have to call it blog. You can call it knowledge base, resource center, articles. You can name it whatever you want. You could call it birthday cake if you wanted to. The name doesn't matter. You just need to have a spot where you are occasionally, at least I would say once a month, ideally more, but I know life is busy, so at least once a month, publishing some sort of informational article. You can have a CTA on it. You can at the very end be like, oh, and don't forget, you can sign up for my newsletter. You can buy XYZ over here. But the main goal of these pages should be to share information. And this is the really valuable content that is most likely to be picked up by AI search tools. So it's all well and good. You do these things. How do you know if it's working? Here's what you should look for. So first off, to figure out if your website is doing well in AI search, you first want to see how many of your pages are actually indexed, meaning found and displayed in search results by Google. Now, yes, there are other search tools, but Google is the one that makes this tool that lets us see how many pages are actually showing up in search results. I have the ability to show up in search results. And if Google can find and show one of your pages, then Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity, etc., they can too. So this is a screenshot from a tool called Google Search Console. It's free. When you go to Google Search Console online, if you Google it, it'll walk you through the setup process on your website. And it will show you, it can take a week or two after you set it up for this data to populate, but it will show you how many pages are actually found by the search engine crawler and how many of those pages can be shown online. Now, as you'll see here, I have 58 pages on my website and only 51 of them are indexed. That's fine, and that's actually intentional. I have some pages on my site, like a login page for people who subscribe to my newsletter, that doesn't need to show up in search. So I've removed it from Google's indexing. But generally speaking, you want the number of indexed pages to be pretty close to the total number of pages on your website. This means you can be found. The next thing you want to look at is clicks and impressions. Now, there's a term you might hear sometimes if you're researching GEO, which is called the great decoupling. Because a long time ago, by that I mean like 3 years ago, but it feels forever ago in terms of SEO, it moves so fast. If your impressions on your website went up, so the number of people who are seeing you in their search results went up, your clicks to your website would go up at a pretty comparable pace. For every 5 impressions, you might get a click. When AI search tools rolled out a few years ago, that changed, and those two metrics started to grow further apart because people are taking longer to click. They're getting the information that they want directly from the AI chat, and they might be making multiple chats, running multiple chat questions before they ever decide to actually go ahead and click through to your site and take action. So what you want to look for is that, so you see here, impressions is much higher than clicks for this period of time. That's okay, what you really want to look for is that they're at least both moving in the same direction. This would be problematic if impressions continued to go up and clicks was declining further down. But even though there's a gap between the two numbers, they're at least still moving upward. So it's no longer 5 impressions equals a click. It might be more like 5,000 impressions equals 100 clicks, but it is still moving up in a similar direction. So that's what you want to look for. Ideally, you also want to see that your position in regular search results and in the AI overview continues to go up. We can track how you're appearing in Google's AI overview. It's much harder to track how you're actually appearing in other chat tool AI search chat tools because everyone can have different conversations and doesn't really have like a number position like Google products do. But if you're appearing high up in Google search results and you are appearing in the AI overview in search results on Google, you are going to be making gains in the other AI tools as well, assuming they can access your website. You also want to look at time spent engaging with the content on your page. So ideally, you should see that people, when they do click through to your site, they're spending at least 2 minutes on your site. This, for most people, taps out around 5 minutes. This is an average. And of course, some people are spending longer, some people are spending less. But if you are seeing somewhere between like 2 to 4 minutes, you're doing good, you're on target. If you're seeing less than that, if people are only spending maybe 30 seconds on your website, that can be an indicator that what you're publishing is not well aligned with what people want. That's where that search intent could be an issue. So maybe people are searching for informational stuff. You are getting picked up by Claude or whoever. But when they click through just a sales page, they're not getting that how to. So if you see a load time on your site, that's an indication that you're not necessarily providing what people want. You might want to reconfigure your strategy for what kinds of content you're creating. Finally, look for traffic diversity. Where are your visitors coming from? Are other people sharing your content? What pages do visitors like? The more traffic you get, whether it comes from AI tools, and in this example, AI overview is included in this Google line here. This is all Google, like AI mode, AI overview, regular search. If people are sharing you and people are clicking to your site, even if it's not through search, maybe it was shared like we have the third one down here, Substack. Any traffic you're getting to your site sends a signal to Google, to AI search tools, that your site is valuable. It is of interest. It provides something that people want. So you want to make sure it's good to get traffic from AI tools, but remember, clicks from AI tools are low because people feel satisfied by the chat itself. So don't feel that you can only focus on that. Look for a good diversity of sources and make sure that people are finding you in different ways. Also, look at how people are landing on your site. This is another picture from Google Search Console. It will show you how people are finding you in search. So this is just a snippet of some queries people made on a specific week. Yes, some people find me by my name, but people are also finding me because they have questions about AI and human content writing, GEO, like we're talking about today, how to use questions and answers for AI. So if you look at this report in Google Search Console and you see that people are only finding you because they're searching your brand name, or that this list of ways people are finding you is very unrelated to what you actually talk about, that can show that there is, again, a mismatch between what you're publishing and what people are searching. And again, there is no way right now to fully track exactly what AI queries people type to show your site. So that's why I refer to Google queries throughout parts of this presentation, because everyone words questions differently, and these chat conversations people have are meant to be private between them and the AI tool. Sometimes they get leaked, but generally speaking, it's not something that you and I can access. We can't access other people's private chat queries. So tools do exist to test and make an educated guess as to what topics and queries you're showing up for. But those tools can be very expensive. So I'm not recommending that anyone here buy one today. I'm recommending that you start with the information you can get from Google Search Console. And if that's aligned and AI tools can access your site, you're going to be on the right path. If you want to know more about what a ChatGPT user might be experiencing when they search and see you, or a Claude user might be experiencing when they search and see you. You can do that, but you would be better served to work with a consultant who can show you that rather than pay for the tool yourself. I also recommend using a tool called Fathom Analytics. Now, there were some purple graphs that I showed you, like time on site, how people are finding you. Those are all from Fathom Analytics. So Google Analytics is a free tool some of you may have. It can be very overwhelming. There's a ton of data in Google Analytics, and the average person doesn't actually need all of that data. Fathom Analytics, I find, streamlines it and lets you get closer to the data that you actually need to figure out how you're performing. You don't have to wade through a bunch of stuff. So you can go to usefathom.com and sign up. It is about $15 a month for most people. You can attach multiple websites to your account. And to this link here, and I will send this on afterward, this is an affiliate link. It's totally optional if you want to use it, but it gives you $10 off, your 10 USD off your first invoice. And I find that if you've ever found Google Analytics to be overwhelming or annoying, Fathom is much, much better. This is an example of what Fathom looks like. So you can customize this report somewhat, but it's very straightforward. It's very easy to understand, and you don't have to wade through a bunch of screens. And that is all we have for today. I know that was a huge info dump, lots of information to take in. I will be sending this out for you, this presentation, so if you want to review it and re-listen, you're more than welcome to. You will have access to it. That will be coming out in your email later today. And I so appreciate everyone joining today. I see we have a few questions that have come in, so I'm going to answer those if you want to hang around. So the first question we have is, what should someone do if there are more pages not indexed than indexed in Google Search Console? That's a really good question. There can be a few reasons for that, and I unfortunately can't tell you exactly why here on the call. I'd actually have to look at your site and see it. Generally speaking, that can mean that Google isn't aware of how many pages you have, and sometimes this happens after an update. Especially if you have updated your website, moved to a new platform, changed a lot of pages. So within Google Search Console, you can submit your sitemap for indexing. So if you go to your website /sitemap.xml, that gives you a copy of your sitemap, which is a list of all the pages on your site. There's a section in Google Search Console close to where you would look to see if pages are indexed where you can submit that to them, and it will bump your site up the queue for processing. If you do that and Google still cannot index some of your pages, you should get an error result in Search Console that tells you why. At that point, that provides more information that can be used to diagnose specific problems. But that's where I would start, with resubmitting it, submit your sitemap to Google Search Console. Lynn asked about sites that have specific pages for AI crawling. That's a great question. So you will see sometimes that people talk about things like LLMs.txt files, or a plain text file at the bottom of their website that just has instructions like, if you're an AI, here's how you should refer to my website. You do not need to use these. So Google has formally come out and said that LLM.txt files don't actually do anything for appearing in AI search. And when people put plain text pages on their site that say, if you're an AI tool, you should know this about my site, those tools those pages can show up in AI search results, but it's not any different than putting a regular page on your website. And you might actually wind up with someone asking an AI tool about you and just getting a link to that page instead. So I recommend avoiding those entirely. Just put normal content on your website. If there's something specific that you want an AI tool to communicate to its users about you, just make sure that that is prevalent somewhere on your site in a way that also makes sense for a human reader. It's not going to feel weird. Amanda asks, is it still worthwhile to do any keyword optimization work? Yes, it very much is. So when you are creating new pages for your website, you should have a target question or keyword in mind. And that can be a couple words. or it can be a full question. This is really important because we still need to make sure that we're creating web pages about things people are really searching. If you're only sitting down to create web pages about what you want to talk about, you might be having a disconnect with what you want to talk about and what your audience actually needs to know, because we're all very close to our businesses and to what we talk about on our website. Sometimes we don't realize that the questions people are asking and the terms they're using are different than what we're thinking or using in our head. I do have some articles on my website in the blog about using keywords in 2026. So if that interests you, just pop over there later and you can read about it. And I think you'll find that very helpful. And we have here, what about, you're welcome, Linda. Josh asks, what about using AI to write but feeding it a voice profile of how I write to get a good first draft? No, I mean, you can choose to take or leave this information, but ultimately, the voice profile only does so much in terms of influencing the words, the word order that it uses, and like the phrasing that it uses. Um, as Google said, if content can be written by a generative AI tool easily, it is not going to be prioritized. You can certainly like use AI if you really want to, but the end results are not going to be great for SEO in the long term. For that, you really do need the human putting it together, because we can put together different sentence strings and different concepts in ways that AI fully cannot replicate. And Google, ChatGPT, etc., their algorithms can figure out the difference. So thank you again so much, everyone, for joining. These were great questions. I will be emailing you all of this afterward, and you will be getting more insights from me next Tuesday. I send out a newsletter every week with some more information. You feel free to unsubscribe in the future if you want, but I do think that if you found this useful today, you will find that useful as well. And I hope to all see you again on another call soon. Thank you.